This is the Masking Handbook for Audiometry. In this video, we're going to take a look at the masking dilemma. We're at the highest risk of overmasking when the hearing of the non-test ear is poor and the bone conduction cochlear hearing of the test ear is good. In this situation, we need to make the masking noise loud in order to provide active masking. At louder levels, the masking noise is at risk of crossing over to the test ear. If it does cross over, the excellent cochlear hearing, as often reflected by our bone conduction results, is at high risk of being contaminated by the masking noise. The classic masking dilemma is when this situation is present in both ears. The air conduction hearing is poor in both ears, while the cochlear hearing is excellent in both ears. For all of these masking situations, we'll need high levels of masking in order to produce active masking events. This creates a high risk of masking noise crossover. Also, because the bone conduction hearing is excellent in both ears, any crossover whatsoever is likely to cause an overmasking effect. Here's a sketch I made showing the masking framework in a masking dilemma. Because the hearing loss is symmetrical, we'd use the plateau method. To create an initial masking level, we'd first need to compensate for the hearing threshold in the non-test ear. This is the blue area. There's then a 15 dB occlusion effect to be added if we were using insert phones, which is indicated by the yellow area. The 10 dB of active masking is necessary, indicated by the pink. Finally, plateau increases in masking would be necessary, which is indicated by the cross-hatched area. We see that the process ultimately results in a very high level of masking noise. Let's walk through the process in steps. We have a 55 dB threshold in the right ear at 500 Hz. Here are the three parts of the initial masking level: 55 to compensate for the hearing, 15 for occlusion if we have to, and 10 dB of active masking. Total amount of masking, 80 dB. Here are the intraoral attenuation results for TDH phones. Let's look at the maximum possible IA for these devices. Maximum intraoral attenuation documented from the literature at 500 Hz. So 75 dB is kind of our maximum possible attenuation at 500 Hz for TDH phones. Here are IA results for insert phones. Let's take a look at the maximum. Maximum we have 110, 105. So we see just overall the maximum possible amount of attenuation is much higher using insert phones compared to TDH style phones. When confronted with a masking dilemma, you'll want to use insert earphones if possible. A deep and snug insertion of the inserts will provide the highest levels of intraoral attenuation, which will help our testing on a number of fronts, one of them being it reduces the chances of masking crossover. Whatever the case, because the air conduction hearing is poor and the bone conduction hearing of the test ear is good, we're at a high risk for overmasking. For example, if the situational attenuation value is 55 dB and we introduce 80 dB of masking, then 25 dB of masking noise is at risk of crossing to the left side, where it will contaminate the testing over there. And it's possible this will happen for all frequencies when masking the right ear. And it's possible the same thing will happen when we switch ears. When we're in this risky position for both ears, it's a true and classic masking dilemma. Besides using well-positioned insert earphones, what else can we do to aid in this test situation? Well, it's possible we don't have to include the occlusion compensation in our initial masking level formation. If the masked ear has a conductive component present, we may exclude this value. Martin in 1974 recommended this based on a bit of testing in this area and also on the otological tuning fork Bing test. And many writers, although there hasn't been a ton of research on this in the context of audiometry, most writers on the topic of masking have recommended that if you're masking an ear with conductive hearing loss, that there's no need to add the occlusion effect value. Here are a couple of tips. Use insert earphones for higher attenuation. Consider not compensating for the occlusion effect, and we may reduce the active masking level. So when you're building up your masking, if your protocol is to use 10 dB of active masking to create the initial level, you could consider reducing it to 5 dB. Anything we can do to increase attenuation and reduce the initial masking level while still having a theoretical basis that we are masking could be helpful. This is the Masking Handbook for Audiometry. If you liked this video, you'll love the handbook. For more resources on masking and to learn how to purchase the book, check out maskinghandbook.com.